January 14th, 2025, and we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we do have some public members in the audience here, and I don't know if that's also the case, Superintendent Colkey, online, but if there is anyone who would like to address the board, now is the time. And please stand and
Kathy Clark from Shaftesbury. I'm just here as a union rep. Our union wants to be more vocal and more visual at board meetings, so I volunteered to do the board meetings every month, so you'll be seeing me more.
Thank you. Well,
You have no members of the public online.
we're just here for fun.
Exactly.
Thank you. Move on to the consent agenda. And that will,
I'll move that.
thank you.
Second.
One and then Cindy. Any discussion? Hearing none. I move to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Director Gordon, I will send this over to you for the next agenda item and the one after, and the one after, and the one after.
We'll just say 4 through
Yes.
7.
4 through 7.
Okay. So at our annual floor meeting, which will be 3rd, and I have it tentatively on our warning tonight at 6:15. That's what time we had it last year with Mount Anthony meeting at 6. We do not have a moderator. We did not have anybody run for the position, so it's a vacant position. I have checked with the Secretary of State's office and also legal counsel that a board member can serve in that role should the need arise. But essentially what's going to happen is that evening, we'll have to elect somebody from the floor. So if there's a resident in the audience that cares to be the moderator, otherwise we have confirmed that a sitting board member can also serve in that role. There's no conflict.
Can I nominate somebody?
Not tonight.
Yeah, we should do it from the floor of that meeting in case there is somebody that comes in. That's what I do, but
Is this absence public anywhere other than this board meeting? Like, do community members know that going in, or?
that's why I wanted to put it on the
Okay.
agenda. So like, people know, but I understand from our district clerk, Cassie Barbo, that there is somebody that's going to run what will now be the 2-year unexpired term. So there will be somebody to fill in. We just, and they could very well come to that meeting and we could elect them from the floor if they come. I'm not sure if he's available. I think she said it was Bruce Lee Clark.
And the MAU person will be there.
The moderator for Mount Anthony is Chris Murphy. So, he can certainly be, if he's willing to
Nominated?
do it and somebody wants to nominate him. That could be an option. So anyway, it just has to be a resident of the union district. So any of the towns forming, the SVUESD could serve. And essentially it's just reading down through, the articles and then keeping order should anything get out of order, but typically it's, a 5-minute meeting, so. So no action needed on that this evening. I wasn't sure when we were putting the agenda together if things were gonna shake out in terms of the Secretary of State's office and legal, but it is, we can take care of it that evening. Questions?
Thank you.
Under finance, the treasurer's report. You guys do to accept the report. I haven't looked to see if it was actually posted.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Accepted.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? All those in favor of accepting the treasurer's report? Aye. Opposed?
Thoughtful suggestion. Let's raise our voice a little bit so that Richard can hear us. We're really silent.
I think he reads those. He reads those.
And I think it's also a good sound system as well.
Okay.
For the town of Shasberry Public Fund,
Annually, the trustees send a check over to the school, which is used for various school purposes. This year, the amount was $1,076.43. We essentially consider it like a donation coming in, so we just need the board to accept that. So then the treasurer can pick up the check and deposit it, and then the funds can be spent as they typically do.
and that's an action requested, so I need a motion to accept the donation of $1,076.43 for the
I'll
Shasberry.
make a motion to accept.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Glenn. Any discussion? All those in favor of allowing the donation to go through, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Christel? Motion moves forward, and then we have a donation for Benel.
Yep, this has been an annual occurrence for the last couple of years as well. Bruce Learman donates $500 to Benel. And it's similar to the Shasberry, it just goes into a small general fund that the school uses to support activities however they choose. There are no restrictions on the money. Again, just a general donation, but it's allocated for Benel. So we just need the board to accept it, so the check can be deposited.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation.
Thank you, Cindy.
Second.
Thank
I
you.
second.
Glenn. Any discussion, any further discussion? No. All those in favor of allowing the donation for Benel, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion moves forward. And the STEAM Robotics Challenge Grant.
So Lisa Holderness, our STEAM coordinator at the SU, applied for a $1,500 Lego robotics kit grant, which was awarded. So again, in similar fashion, we just need the board to accept that. So we can deposit the funds and then order the robotics kits.
I have a question.
Mhm.
I know it's from K to 5. Is Carl involved in that?
I think there are various programs running, so through the 21st century, after school program, there are different programs running at various schools. So I'm not sure what exactly programming is running at Pownell, but Lisa wanted to run the robotics, so she sought the funding to support that program to run that.
So the kid will travel from
It's for Molly's.
from our startup. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have a motion to accept this grant for Molly for the robotics challenge. Ricardo, second.
Second.
Glenn, second.
Second.
And any further discussion? All those in favor of allowing the STEAM Robotics Challenge Grant to move forward, signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion has been approved.
Jim, can you enable?
Sure.
So the next item on your agenda is, it's still labeled as budget review, but I just wanted an opportunity to revisit this so you actually could see the final version that was approved last week, with the numbers, because I was kind of running on the fly there. So the expenditure budget, was
Yes.
approved at, okay, thank you. 33,128,598 at our last meeting.
Was that that beach thing? We just covered and stuff?
They're always nice, calm. So we, at the meeting last week, we reduced the transfer of $130,000 into the reserve fund. And then also reduce the contingency down to 90,000, essentially putting those funds back and getting us down to that $33.1 million mark. With that, revenue brought our general state support grant number down slightly, so we're at a 15.5% increase. So again, just to reiterate, like the general state support grant, we call it several different things, but this is the money that we're going to be asking for from the education fund, also referred to as education spending. And we see that on the tax rate calculation. And this is really what I wanted to share with you all tonight, because we did just get a revised long-term weighted average daily membership report yesterday from the agency, and our counts uptick just a little bit, but it's enough to, to change the number. So when we, so in black text here, Bennington, Pownell, Shaftesbury, and Woodford, we have to blend the elementary district tax rate with the high school district budget, and we do that proportionately based on each town's reporting of long-term weighted ADM, which is at the top portion of that page. And I tried to keep the colors somewhat aligned, so it's a little bit easier to follow as you go through the complicated calculation that we have for education funding. The current draft of MAU is what I have on here too. This budget has not yet been set, but the MAU board is meeting tomorrow evening. So there could be changes, but this is the best and most accurate information I have at this point in time. So when we blend proportionately the MAU data with the corresponding towns in the SVUESD, and we scroll all the way down and compare by town to what this year's tax rates were, we are projecting, again, at this point in time, a decrease for Bennington and Shaftesbury. Pownell at this point would be looking at a 6-cent increase, and Woodford at about 0.8 of a penny. And then what that relates to in terms of property valuations are at the bottom. So this is all posted online with tonight's packet, but just wanted to, again, bring this back up to you so you could see what the current numbers look like. And then also just wanted to mention with the governor's address, his inaugural address last week, he has his eyes set on education finance reform. But he did make the comment that if school boards can contain spending to the projected levels, that he will work to minimize or eliminate any tax increases. The projected spending increase was 6.1% statewide. So we're at 15.5 for the
And
SVUESD.
was it 16.4 before we did that, or 16?
Previous version.
Yeah,
It's higher.
it was higher. Okay, yeah.
So, everybody seemed pretty comfortable. I know the board was fully in support of that budget, but I just wanted to mention that because he did make it clear in his address last week that, if boards could contain which would be massive cuts that would have to be made in order for us to bring this budget down to a 6.1% number.
But you had mentioned last week, what that was last week, last meeting, time's flying. That you were thinking about that in terms of like the aggregate, right? That like some districts would be a lot like,
Yeah.
what is he thinking about it like that when he made that statement or?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
Some of his messaging in the address was a little cryptic. So, and he's gonna roll out his budget proposal within the next 2 weeks. Which I think, well, he was pretty clear that it's going to have a entirely new student-centered funding formula. A new simpler governance structure. And he's gonna provide school boards and administrators with support and guardrails to reduce cost pressures.
We're concerned about the timing of all this, like, we have to have our budgets done. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it would be maybe a great proposal for the next,
Yeah.
budget season, or this should have been
Mhm.
done in September, though I know the legislature wasn't meeting then, but for when the deadlines that Renee has to meet
Yeah.
and these boards have to meet,
Yeah.
it's out of sync.
But you did say, if I understood you correctly, that the threshold for us, the per pupil spending, that we're well below what the
Yes,
state
we
is
are.
advocating.
Right.
So when I think of that piece of it, it seems that we may not be a target, or at least I'm hoping that we have been diligent in our preparation of the budget, and that we are presenting something that is reasonable for the schools and reasonable for the staff.
So that number actually is on that report. I can pull that back up for anybody who is in the audience. Come on. This is the figure that you'll actually see on the ballot once we look at the warning. But it's this education spending per long-term weighted ADM. So that the legislation changed again. So last year, we didn't actually have to include the language. It's back in this year, so it will appear on our ballot articles. So, just to give you some context, this is where the number comes from. So it's the education spending divided by our long-term weighted average daily membership. Now, again, this long-term weighted average daily membership is the number that I have right now. It's the number that we're gonna warn. It has happened in the past where the numbers changed later on, but we have to go with what we have because we're essentially running out of time. But so for the SVUESD, that number is 12,419. So that's our education spending per long-term weighted average daily membership. And the threshold that was set this year for excess spending, so if we were spending too much, that's 15,926. So we're very far off from that number. But yes, there are several different data points that we can talk about and compare, because even when we look at what the actual expenditure budget is different than what our education spending increases, which is different from what the projected tax rate increases or decreases are. So it's a very complicated system, but yeah, as long as we're all talking the same terminology, then you are correct in what you said in terms of, education.
You'll simplify this by the end of the year, so that next year it'll be a lot easier for all of us. That the campaign, it's not a promise, campaign promise, but it's an address.
So no action really needed on that, just wanted to share, but it was listed as an action item in case anybody wanted to open it back up. But if we're all set, we can move on to the next item, which is
Which is the actual review and approval of the annual meeting warning.
So on that warning. So as is every year, we're identifying at the beginning of the warning when our annual meeting is going to occur. So we will hold our floor meeting Monday, March 3rd in this room at 6:15, if that works for everybody. And I put this out as a draft based it on what we did last year. Just to let you folks know, so I have tentatively set up Mount Anthony's at 6, as we did last year. And SVUESD, Southwest Tech is meeting at 6:30 at the firehouse. So that's it's a shift from last year, because I think they met before MAU in their conference room on Park Street last year. So they're gonna bounce back over to the firehouse and meet right before the town of Bennington has their floor meeting. So I think we're in close enough proximity that if we're wrapped up, again, normally the meetings take 5 to 10 minutes. Anybody who wants to go to the Southwest Tech meeting for 6:30 should be able to get over there. And we're back to towns. If they meet at 7 or 6:30 here. So that is what I do have tentatively set on here, if that's agreeable to everyone. The articles that are on every year, basically setting the rates for our elected officials. Authorizing the school board to borrow money in anticipation of taxes, which we have not had to do the last couple of years, but we keep it on there just in case. We can transfer money out of those capital reserve funds, which we talked briefly about at our last meeting. How the reserve funds kind of came in when we became the union school district, and then we have the new fund for the whole union as well. And then we get into what's actually, what's going to be on the ballot itself, on March 4th. So we will have the moderator for the unexpired 2-year term. We do have a number of seats open. And the reason we're seeing so many, because there were several seats that were actually appointed this year. So when you're appointed to the board, you get to serve for that year, but if you want to continue, you need to run for the seat that you were assigned to. So those are the unexpired terms that you're seeing on here. So we do have five seats out of a board of 8.
Do you know if they have, or you won't know yet?
Paperwork doesn't have to be turned in until
30.
30th.
Okay.
I did look at the calendar. It's like the 5th Monday or something for.
Did you, Cindy, submit yours?
Oh, yes,
Thank you.
I ran right up.
And then the budget ballot article is the expenditure budget as we, as it was set last week with the education spending that we just looked at. And yet another different percentage, right? So it's not the expenditure budget. It's not the increase in ed spending. This is the comparison of education spending per rated pupil to last year. So talk about confusing.
So that looks like it's almost, or 3.9%.
13.9.
Oh, I missed the one. Oh, I liked it better.
Yes. And then we have the polling places, which have been confirmed with all of the clerks. And then we would just need signatures for everybody. So that is the draft warning. If that looks okay, we would just need a motion to adopt that.
Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Cindy. Any further discussion on this? If not, I move to have you approve the annual meeting warning. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
So I'm gonna circulate these for signatures. I've got the warrant here as well. You just have to find your name, which are alphabetical after the chair, vice chair, and clerk.
I will comment.
And Christelle, if you want to sign, I can keep it here at the front desk. And you can stop in at your convenience. To sign, because we should have a quorum. There's only 4 of you here, we wouldn't be 4 to 1.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks you. Okay, and with that, we'll be quiet.
All right, so we are moving on to the policies. This is, policy 1090, use of school facilities. This is a warning, so it is something that we've already seen. It's been around. Give people the opportunity to, make sure that everyone, all the other boards are in agreement. So it's back to us, so we need a motion to accept it, policy 1090, use of school facilities.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Cindy. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the use of moving forward, 1090, use of school facilities, signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Moves forward. And the other policy is the student nutrition and wellness is policy number 5156. I need a motion to move that forward. To adopt it.
Second.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Cindy. Any discussion? All those in favor of moving forward, policy 5156, student nutrition and wellness, signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. We are not having a principal report this evening. The SVSU report, I can say in 3 words, our last meeting was budget, and budget. I will not speak on behalf of our chair, Chris, so that would be section 11, the chair's report. Which brings us to the very end. of This meeting, which is the FYI, which is the budget status. Anything else, Director? There's no superintendent. I do not see a superintendent's report.
Seems like a typo.
Wow. So that was saying, would you like us to add a? That being, okay. That being-
Sandy, this is
Budget,
Richard.
budget.
Question,
That being
Sandy,
said,
from Richard.
Richard,
The motions for the 2 policies you said was to move forward and
to adopt, I'm sorry, thank
To-
you,
to
Richard.
adopt, even though it's on the agenda is to warn.
Oh, it's a warning.
Yeah, well, why don't we stick with the agenda and say.
Okay,
To be warned.
to be warned.
Warned, okay,
Thank
got it, got it.
Thank you, Richard.
Yep.
Glad you're awake, Richard.
I know. Should we redo this to make sure that?
Richard, did they say, when they took the vote, did they say adopt or warn?
It was very confusing
All right,
exactly
fine.
who was saying what.
So it is.
You said that it made the rounds already. so it
Yeah.
Sort of implies.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll say.
Okay, so all those in favor of warning policies 1090, use of school facilities, and warning policy 5156, student nutrition and wellness, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You, Richard.
It is 6:03 at the end of our meeting, and I need someone to make a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Ricardo. Any discussion? Those in favor of adjourning this meeting at 6:03, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Easy. Thank you for last week. That helped us a lot.
We typically do not meet in February unless a meeting is needed. The chair will call, but we typically, once the budgets are done, we meet until we reorganize in March.
Can you see some of the flavor, Nick?